Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Home Away from Home, a mini series where we highlight the stories of expats who are making the Netherlands their new home. I am Amber Paris, and this series is brought to you by Expat Housing Network, your go-to team for expats buying or renting in the Netherlands. Today we're speaking with Jessalyn. She's from the US and owns her home in Amsterdam. She will share with you how she went from renting to owning a home with the support of Expat Housing Network. Jessalyn will also leave some words of advice for first-time home buyers and for expats living in the Netherlands. Without further ado, let's meet Jessalyn.
Yeah, I'm Jessalyn Dean. I'm kind of from all over the United States. I grew up mostly in Manhattan, Kansas. It's a really small town of 50,000 people. After university, I also lived in Denver, Colorado, and San Francisco, so kind of from everywhere.
Awesome, nice. How did you navigate those new neighborhoods and new communities as you were moving around? What did that feel like for you?
I moved around a lot as a kid, so it was sort of a really natural thing, always making new friends and being in new places. So I just sort of was raised that way. And it's funny, I actually have an Excel spreadsheet of every address I've lived at in the last 20 years. And the longest I've lived anywhere since 2003 is 18 months, and that was in Dublin, Ireland. So I have a lot of past addresses, and I'm pretty used to moving around a lot.
You and I have that in common. I also moved around a lot growing up, but around New York City. So I've actually been every borough. So at some point you just become accustomed to it, for sure.
Exactly. So when I was living in the United States, I knew I wanted to live in Europe. I really wanted to expand my worldview and just start experiencing other cultures and just, the way that the world worked. I wanted to experience that firsthand. And I actually originally had my eyes set on the Netherlands because I knew that the culture is quite direct, and I'm a really direct person. So I thought that would be really compatible for my way of being and working. Also, I felt ashamed that I didn't speak a second language, and I was excited to learn a second language. The Netherlands is a really friendly place to learn Dutch because everyone here does speak English really, really well. So if you're having a hard time, people will always step up and help you. And because not that many people try to learn Dutch, when people learn that you are learning Dutch, they're so stoked. And just the smallest effort, everyone's like,
yes, they're so proud.
So proud. And I'm like, I'm doing great, even if I'm not. So I had my eyes set on the Netherlands in that sense. It's also mainland Europe, really international, accessible airport at Schiphol. But it's actually quite difficult to get a job in the Netherlands when you don't already live here. Well, in Europe, it's difficult to get a job in Europe if you don't already live in Europe. So I was kind of going for whatever I could take at the time. So I joined a company in San Francisco with my eyes set on Europe. And when I joined the company, I said, I want to live and work in Europe. And they said, no problem. So about a year and a half into working in San Francisco, the opportunity arose to go to Ireland. And I thought, well, it's not the Netherlands, but it's my foot in the door to Europe. But I went into living in Ireland with my mindset of, this is home. This is where I'm going to be. This is my new life. If it doesn't work out, I can change my mind. And I got my foot in the door to Europe at least. And that's what ended up happening. Dublin's actually really, really expensive to live in, more expensive than Amsterdam and San Francisco.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was really struggling with the cost of living.
Okay.
And then magic would happen. And I had the opportunity with work to transfer to Amsterdam, and I just snatched it up. I said, yes, it's what I had my eyes set on. So here I am.
Nice. Awesome. It all just played out perfectly for you in a beautiful trajectory.
Yes.
So you said that you always knew you wanted to live in Amsterdam. You just needed to get your foot in the door. How did you learn about the city, and what made you feel like make me feel that inspiration, even from afar? You hadn't even been here yet. So what was it about the city?
Yeah, so I'd never visited the Netherlands. So I'd never visited Amsterdam. I just knew about the city from sort of pop culture references and tourism guides and that sort of thing. But I just always got this sense that the open-mindedness and the yeah, the sort of free nature of the Dutch was really compatible with who I am as a person. Like weed is legal here and prostitution is legal here. And while I don't partake in either of those two things, the fact that the Dutch culture is accepting of those things was really indicative to me of a really warm and accepting place that I would want to live.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd never been here. I didn't know anyone that lived here. And one of my mottos is, people ask me, how can you move to a place that you've never even visited? And my response to that is, how much would you need to visit a place to know that you want to live there? 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. As a tourist, you never really know if you would be compatible to live somewhere. So I just say, my motto is just bite the bullet and go. And if you don't like it, you can change your mind.
Wow. You just said a million words, honestly. That's super bold, honestly, because I can imagine people feeling hesitant to move to another state even because they haven't visited the state. But that's such a great point you make. Being a visitor is such a different experience that you don't really know what it will be like until you actually move there.
So just go.
So just go, just do it. I love that. Let's talk a little bit more about the process of finding your home. What were you looking for in a home? And how did you know that the place you have now was the place you wanted?
Yeah. So my makelaar that helped me find my first place found me a fantastic place, but it wasn't right for me in the longer term, just the way that the landlord sort of ran the building. There was a bit of Airbnb going on, which meant there was people coming back and forth, but that happens in any city. That's not unique to Amsterdam. So after 4 months, I was like, I need to find a new place. And what I was looking for was actually a little bit difficult to find because I knew I wanted to live in De Pijp, which is one of the more hip, popular, active neighborhoods. It's not the city center, but it's where, the cool kids hang out. And I just really wanted to be part of the cafe culture that's around here. So I knew I wanted to live in De Pijp, but because it's so popular, a lot of investors buy up properties and renovate, and everything is really glossy IKEA, which is very attractive and to the widest audience, but it's actually not what I like. I really like I call it a farmhouse shabby chic with really old paint peeling and like just a ton of character. Wood floors that maybe creak a little bit. But in De Pijp, that's actually quite hard to find because the investors have bought them up and tidied them all up with IKEA. So I was struggling a bit to find a place that was in De Pijp, but that was this kind of old shabby chic. So this place, I went to Funda, which is like apartments.com or a Craigslist where you go look for apartments.
Okay.
You can look for ones to buy or to rent. And this time I didn't have a makelaar, but we'll come back to that. I found this apartment in De Pijp, and from the pictures, I immediately knew like this was it. I just needed to be able to win it from whoever else wanted it. So I showed up, and it's funny because when I first saw it, I walked through the door and I was in love, and I thought to myself, whoever the owner is of this, I'm going to convince her one day to sell me this apartment. Like I'm going to get a good relationship with her and try and buy it off of her. So I come in and there's a makelaar showing the apartment, but the owner is not present. And he's got like a queue of people coming through, every 15 minutes, this is pre-COVID, to view the apartment. So I walk through, I kind of check everything off my list. But then I stop with the makelaar and I'm like, I'd like to get to know you. And I'd like to know a bit more about the woman that owns this place. What's she like? What kind of tenant is she looking for? What kind of relationship does she like with her tenants? Because it's important to me to have a good relationship with my landlord.
Absolutely.
So everyone else that came through was just focused on, does it have the things on my checklist? And none of them stopped to chat with the makelaar. So I talked to him for like 30 minutes while everyone else just did their checklist. And I knew then and there that I had the apartment because I made a personal connection with him. So he immediately recommended me to the owner by saying, like, she's the person you want in this apartment. So that is one gem or tip for people, is stop and talk to the makelaar, stop and ask about the seller or the owner, what they're like, and just make a really good impression, and boom, you're in. They even had higher offers on this apartment for rent, but they accepted mine because I'd made that personal connection. I didn't use a makelaar to find the apartment, but I was living here for 1 year, and I decided, and I love this apartment. It is my favorite home I've ever lived in my entire life. It is my dream home. So after a year, though, I decided I need to buy an apartment. I'm throwing my money away on rent, and I'm convinced I want to live in Dubai. So I approached my landlord and I said, "Hi, landlord. I'm just letting you know that I'm gonna start shopping for a home, so that you have a heads up that I'll be leaving the lease when I find something." So she says, "Well, that's very clever. You should, when you leave, I'll consider selling." And I said, "Well, what's your price?" So it actually worked out as I wanted it to, but I was still nervous about the whole buying process. Like, I didn't know what to offer her as a price. Because what she said was she wasn't going to take it to the market to Funda, but my neighbors above me and below me also wanted to buy my apartment to make their apartments bigger. So I had to compete against my neighbors, which meant I did need to have a competitive offer. So I did hire a makelaar to help me navigate making an offer, making a good offer, understanding the legal implications of the contracts and everything. So even though the makelaar didn't necessarily help me find the place because I was already living in it, the makelaar was still there to help me navigate the offering process and all of the documents and translating them and telling me what they meant. So I actually bought my apartment in January from my former landlord, and it's mine now.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. I know it's like 2 years later, but still congratulations. Wow.
So I had actually reached out to 5 other makelaars, and people kept ghosting me. And I didn't know if it was because I was American or because they were just super busy. I couldn't figure out why I kept being ghosted by makelaars. Like we'd have like a 30-minute intake interview, and then they'd say, we'd have like a 30-minute intake interview, and then they'd say, "We'll be back to you shortly." And then I'd never hear from them again. So I was chatting with a friend of mine who lives across the street. He's also American, lives here with his wife. I met them after I moved here. And he said that he had used EHN. So he gave me his recommendation, and that's how I found EHN. EHN was my makelaar, for buying the apartment. So in December, January.
Okay, so you went through EHN for the reviewing the contract, even though you had already found your place. Okay.
Yeah, and making the offer and deciding what price to offer at and negotiating and all that stuff. So EHN helped me with all of that.
How does it feel to own your own home, and what are some of the benefits to that?
I love owning my little slice of Amsterdam. It just even makes me feel like more of a hug in the city. Because owning in Amsterdam, you're usually a part of a homeowners association. So it's called a VVE or VVE in English. And so apartments in a building are part of an association, which means kind of similar to the United States, the building association makes sure that the roof is in good repair and the stairwell is in good order and the windows and the outside are all clean and taken care of. So it was really nice knowing that I didn't need to buy a freestanding home and figure out how to maintain a whole property in the Netherlands, that I was sort of buying into some prepackaged maintenance as part of the VVE. And I guess the other thing is it's really, really common in the Netherlands for people to really do a lot of renovations when they buy a place. people even take their floors with them and take their floors to their new place or their appliances.
The floors? Like
the floors. Yeah. You know,
okay.
Yeah. So it's actually pretty common for you to buy a new place or move into a new place and just completely redo everything. Depending on your budget, of course. So to me, even though I'd lived in this apartment for a year, the best way that I've been making this my home is actually doing some renovations. So it feels a bit more like I put my touch on it. So I had some budget from the bank to renovate my bathroom. So I have a brand new bathroom. I'm going to paint my floors. I'm going to remove a wall over there. And so it'll give me my own little spin on like, this is mine. I made this mine. So that's pretty common. You know, in the Netherlands, it's really easy for people to walk into homes and say, yep, this place is great, even if the structure isn't exactly how they like it, because it's super common to just take down a wall, put up a wall. And it's easier for people to see their future home in a place, even if it doesn't look like in its current state what they want. So yeah, the best part to make it yours is do a bit of renovation. So I recommend sort of budgeting for things you might want to change so you can make it yours.
Nice. Wow. Really ambitious. Knocking down walls, taking apart floors. Wow.
I know.
Cafe hopping in De Pipe or picnic in Vondel Park?
I'm going to go cafe hopping.
Absolutely. I feel that. That's your vibe. Awesome.
New decor with every season or consistent vibes all year round?
Consistent vibes all year round. These linen curtains all year round.
Sweet.
Fairy lights.
Fairy lights. Yes. Oh my gosh. Even in the summer, during the winter, it's always perfect. Love
always
that.
Good.
Houseboat in Old Jordaan or houseboat on the Amstel?
Old in Jordaan. I already told you earlier. I just love that classic old feeling vibe. Yeah.
Sweet.
Rooftop terrace or home garden?
Rooftop terrace. Was that your guess?
Yeah.
Okay, here's why. This is very specific.
Okay.
Because when I was looking to buy, while I did buy the apartment I'm living in, I did go look at, and I put offers on like 4 or 5 or 6 other properties using with EHN support. And I was torn like, oh, this place has a garden, but it's more expensive. Is it worth it? And what I usually heard from people was when you live in Amsterdam, these buildings are usually 3 to 4 to 5 stories tall. And so if you have a garden in Amsterdam, 90% of the time, there's no sun in it because there's all this tall building around it. So unless you are in some really unique circumstance where the sun hits it like all day, the amount of time that you can actually use it is quite small. Otherwise, it's just cold and in the shade. So rooftop terrace is the way to go because you get sunshine all day. Buy as soon as you can if you want to buy. You can always change your mind. It's actually not that expensive to buy a home in terms of like the extra costs that it takes to buy one compared to the US. I waited like a year and a half to buy, and I just wish I would have bought a lot sooner. Like I'm just throwing money away on rent. I would even recommend buying if you're only staying for a temporary amount of time. I think less than 6 months, it probably doesn't make sense. But buy as soon as possible. I just kept waffling on like, waffling on like, is this really where I want to live? Like, is this neighborhood where I want to live, or is there somewhere better? It's this FOMO that we get, like, but is there something better? And like, trust your gut. Like, I just should have bought like way sooner. So that's my first tip. Don't get nervous. You can always change your mind. And then the second tip is more about that move to the Netherlands. Not knowing someone or having never been to the Netherlands. I do this all the time. I moved to Ireland. I didn't know anybody. I'd never been. I moved to the Netherlands. I didn't know anybody. I'd never been. Also, we didn't talk about this earlier, but I've also lived in Australia and India. Wow. I didn't know anyone. I had never been. And I sold everything and moved to these other countries. So like I said earlier, if you go as a tourist, you still never really know if a place is somewhere to live. So for me, I just do some research online. I watch some YouTube videos. I get a sense, and I go. So don't let that, make you afraid. The worst thing that can happen is you change your mind and you move back. So what? It's not the end of the world. You will regret the things that you didn't do. You'll rarely regret the things that you did do.
Oh my gosh, what a strong end to an amazing interview. Wow. Thank you so much. That was great. And honestly, something that I also needed to hear as I'm thinking about my next steps. I love Amsterdam, but I want to see the rest of the world. And you definitely inspired me to go out there and be a global nomad. So thank you so much for your time. Do you have any last minute questions or final remarks before we close off?
No, that's it.
Thank you so much for tuning in. In this video, Jessalyn dropped a lot of real estate vocab. She talks about 3 different types of makelaars, the VVE. I hope you were able to keep up, but no worries, because on our website, you can find more information on all things you need to know about the Dutch housing market at expat We know that renting or buying a home in the Netherlands can feel daunting, but as you heard from Jessalyn today, it doesn't have to be. We are here to make sure that you find and feel at home in the Netherlands no matter where you're from and no matter how much you make. If you already have a property in mind that you'd like to rent or to purchase, we'd love to help facilitate the rest of the process. But if you have no idea where you'd want to live yet, we would love to support you with that stage as well. Click the link in the caption to schedule a free intake with one of our buying managers or visit our website at expathousing.nl. You can also visit our events page for our weekly and monthly free webinars where we share more information on renting and buying in the Netherlands. And of course, be sure to follow us on all social platforms to stay up to date on all things expat housing. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.